Hey, good
Good
evening,
evening,
gentlemen. Welcome to,
welcome to.
oh, here
Here
comes,
comes me.
that's good. Welcome
Welcome
to
to
the
the
March
March.
meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the town of Tecumseh. All the committee members are here. So thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. Is there anybody who has a disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening? None. Minutes were pre-circulated. I did make 4 suggestions about just grammatical errors and spelling and stuff. So those have been changed, but there's no change to the meaning of the minutes. So I'd ask for an approval with those minor corrections. Tony and Tom? Anybody else have any questions about the minutes? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. My imagination, or am I getting quicker? First application this evening is for Carpenters Training Center in Windsor Incorporated on Faison Drive. You want to come up to the table? And Donna will read the application. You know who that is? Your name and... Yes, please.
My name is Josh Bazaar. I am a business representative with Local 494 and director on Carpenters Training Center Incorporated.
Okay. Donna will read the application and then we'll get you to give us a few comments if you would.
Application for consent BO224, Carpenters Training Center, Windsor Incorporated, 2179 Faison Drive. The purpose of the application is to sever a vacant parcel of land outlined in red and identified as Part 2, 12R 29494, having an area of 2,036.5 square meters, 21,920.7 square feet, and added to the industrial property to the south, identified as Part 1, 12R 29494, resulting in a total area of 0.84 hectares, 2.08 acres. The retained vacant parcel outlined in green and identified as Part 3, 12R 29494, having an area of 3,399.29 square meters, 36,589.6 square feet, is proposed to be added to the vacant industrial property to the north, identified as Part 4, 12R 29494, resulting in a total area of 0.81 hectares, 2 acres. The property is designated business park in the official plan and zoned industrial M1-20 in zoning bylaw 85-18. Administration and agency comments are as follows. Public Works and Engineering, that the applicant be required to service each individual parcel with a separate water supply to the satisfaction of the Town of Tecumseh Water Services Division prior to the severance being finalized. Separate water service connections will be required for both new parcels. Permits from the Town of Tecumseh Water Services Divisions are required, and a town water operator is to be on site during the installation of the water service. That the applicant be required to provide an engineered drainage and grading plan prepared by a qualified professional engineer for the severed parcel to the satisfaction of the town building official prior to the severance being finalized. That the applicant should be made aware that municipal sanitary sewers are not available at the location of this severance. A private septic system will be required to the satisfaction of the Town of Tecumseh chief building official. That the applicant enter into and provide the Town of Tecumseh a written agreement for the reapportionment of the drainage assessment for the subject lands in accordance with Section 65(2) of the Ontario Drainage Act, RSO 1990 as amended, and that the associated costs of same be borne solely by the applicant. Should new access driveways be required, the applicant, developer, or future home builder shall be required to obtain permits from the Town of Tecumseh Public Works Division to install new access driveways in accordance with Town of Tecumseh standards from phase and drive prior to the commencement of driveway construction within the town's right-of-way. The applicant and future owners should be made aware that future property amendments may be subject to site plan control process, under which Public Works and Environmental Services will work with the owners and its consultants regarding site servicing and stormwater management. This includes, but is not necessarily limited to, submission of site servicing and grading plans and stormwater management reports that capture the proposed amendments for Public Works and Environmental Services review and approval. The cost of all servicing requirements will be at the expense of the applicant. Building department. The building owner shall provide the building department a septic analysis from a BCIN septic qualified contractor to confirm that the septic system is in good working order, as well as to identify the location of the septic system's dispersal bed and tank. The applicant will need to obtain an Ontario land survey that clearly identifies the location of the system so that it can be confirmed that all applicable setbacks are maintained. Note, if the property owner cannot confirm that the septic system meets Ontario Building Code requirements, or if the system is proven to be failing or non-existent, the building department shall issue orders. The landowner is responsible to ensure that all building services are contained within existing property boundaries and shall not extend beyond newly established lot lines. It is the responsibility of the landowner to ensure that surface water does not adversely affect neighboring properties. Fire department, no comments received. IRCA, this site is not located within a regulated area under the jurisdiction of IRCA. Therefore, no permit under Section 28 is applicable. No objection to the application. Essex Power Line, no comments or concerns as it's outside the Essex Power Line service area. Thank you.
There's anything you'd like to add to what we've just heard? First of all, do you have a copy of those comments from administration?
I believe Logan Kane was working with Donna Ferris on this. Does Logan have a copy of that? Can you confirm?
He was provided a link to the agenda.
Perfect.
Planning report on Friday.
Okay, then we're good then.
Okay. And you have no further comment about what project or?
Not at all, unless anyone has any further questions on.
We'll see.
Okay.
Okay, good, thank you. Committee, got any questions about this one? I have one. Public Works and Engineering require a water service to what will be a vacant lot?
So, Mr. Chair, yeah, the water service has to be provided to what will be a vacant lot, essentially. So when we create lots, yeah, we have to ensure that they have the available municipal service connections.
Okay.
In front of them.
So who decides to locate it? Because until there's a plan for a building, where are you going to put it?
That's worked out between the water department and the applicant. So if they don't have any building plans, they find a spot for the connection to go that would accommodate most building types, I suppose. But it is a requirement so that the future purchaser isn't buying land that doesn't have the connection.
Okay. I have some familiarity with how another municipality handles that. And what they do there is if there's a requirement in the future like that, like driveways, I mean, you're not going to put a driveway there until you have a building or apartment parking lot to turn into. They register a severance agreement that includes that notice so that when somebody looks it up on the registry, it will show that that will be a requirement. Have we ever done anything alike?
So, Mr. Chair, I'm familiar with that approach, and when I used to work for the town of Essex, we did utilize that at times. Our policy here is to ensure that every newly created lot has the connection. In the event of an access drive, however, if it's not crossing a major drain where there would be a huge expense involved, then we do allow for the driveway approach to go in after the severance is completed.
Okay. It seems a bit socialist.
Mr. Chair, we can certainly look into that approach, and I'll have a discussion with engineering about it.
All right.
Okay.
I see that we're supposed to make a condition of that, so I wonder if we can do it somehow. I mean, it's going to go in. It's just the thing about notice, instead of actually having the work go in and then 2 years down the road when they want to put a building on there and the water service in the wrong place.
So, Mr. Chair, part of the, so if it's simple enough to put in a water connection and it's not going to, undermine the ability to locate any type of building within the zoning bylaw provisions on the lot, then I think the applicants would prefer to do that. But, using the legal agreement approach, and it has to be, first of all, you have to get the agreement developed and someone has to pay for that. And that agreement gets registered on title. So there's a few extra steps involved in that process. I think with respect to the water line, it's a condition that we've been using for some time now, but I will bring back a report to the committee with respect to the alternative approach to using agreements for that. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? So somebody going to make a motion? Then you got nothing to ask. Tony?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept severance application BO 224. Turning the 3 properties into 2 would be beneficial in the sense that you could have a bigger building, which in some cases, many developers are looking for, to have bigger footprints. It would also assist in parking and with the installation of the septic bed. So in this case, I would make the motion. I believe there are 10 conditions associated with this, just making sure that the applicant's aware of the conditions and that they be registered, that they be part of the approval.
Seconded by Tom. Any further comment on the motion? All in favor? Who's carried? Unanimous. Thank you. Whenever you're ready. Voted.
Application for consent BO 324, Jamie Allen Bockwell and Corey Bockwell, 4192 11th Concession Road. Subsequent to the mailing of the notice of the application for BO 324, a minor revision to the lot depth and frontage was requested. Please refer to the updated sketch below for the current severance proposal. The proposal has been revised by extending the depth of the proposed severed lot by 5.6 meters, 18.4 feet, to avoid the creation of a narrow strip of land to the rear of the lot. The frontage of the proposed lot has been marginally reduced from 45.7 meters, 150 feet, to 43 meters, 141 feet, in order to maintain a lot area of 0.5 hectares. It is the opinion of the planning report that the intent of the proposal remains the same and it is not changed to the extent that further notification is necessary. Accordingly, the proposed purpose of the revised application is to sever a vacant parcel of land having a frontage of 43 meters, 141 feet, a depth of 115.3 meters, 378 feet, and a lot area of 0.5 hectares, 1.24 acres, as outlined in the sketch. As a condition of the consent, the retained parcel containing a single-family dwelling and one outbuilding will merge with Part 3, 12R3652, resulting in a total lot area of 1.5 hectares, 3.7 acres. To achieve this consolidation, a cancellation of consent will have to be granted by the committee and should be made a condition of the favorable decision on the proposed severance application. No additional building lots will be created as a result of the proposed severance. Administration and agency comments. Public Works and Engineering. That the applicant enter into and provide the town of Tecumseh written agreement for the reapportionment of drainage assessment for the subject lands in accordance with section 65(2) of the Ontario Drainage Act RSO 1990 as amended, and that the associated costs of same be borne solely by the applicant. That the applicant be required to modify any subsurface drainage tiles that are located on the parcel to be severed, to disconnect them from subsurface drainage tiles on the parcel to be retained to the satisfaction of the town of Tecumseh chief building official prior to the severance being finalized. It appears that access to the severed parcel is not currently provided over the 11th concession drain. As such, a new access will be required to accommodate this application, and an engineered report in accordance with the Ontario Drainage Act RSO 1990 will be required. All associated costs of same will be borne solely by the applicant. The applicant should be made aware that the municipal sanitary sewers are not available at the location of this severance. A private septic system will be required to the satisfaction of the town of Tecumseh chief building official. That the applicant be required to service each individual parcel with separate water supply to the satisfaction of the town of Tecumseh Water Services Division prior to the severance being finalized. Separate water service connections will be required for the retained and severed parcels. Permits from the town of Tecumseh Water Division are required, and the town water operator is to be on site during the installation of the water service. The cost of all servicing and permitting requirements will be at the expense of the applicant. Building Department. The property owner shall provide the building department a septic analysis from a BCIN septic qualified contractor to confirm that the septic system is in good working order, as well as to identify the location of the septic system's dispersal bed and tank. The applicant will need to obtain an Ontario land survey that clearly identifies the location of the system so that it can be confirmed that all applicable setbacks are maintained. Note, if the property owner cannot confirm that the septic system meets Ontario Building Code requirements, or if the system is proven to be failing or non-existent, the building department shall issue orders. The landowner is responsible to ensure that all building services are contained within existing property boundaries and shall not extend beyond newly established lot lines. It is the responsibility of the landowner to ensure that surface water does not adversely affect neighboring properties. County of Essex. The minimum setback for any proposed structure on property must be 85 feet from the center of the right-of-way of County Road 43. Permits are necessary for any changes to existing structures or construction of new structures. The County of Essex is requesting a copy of the decision on the aforementioned application. Should these applications be approved, we are requesting a copy of the revised survey plan of the subject lands in order to update our mapping records. IRCA. The above noted lands are subject to our development, interface, and wetlands and alterations to shorelines and watercourse regulations under the Conservation Act. The parcel falls within the regulated area of the 11th concession drain. IRCA has no objection to the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Is there anything you would like to add to what we've heard so far?
I think that Donna covered most of it in the which she read out there. So if anyone has any questions, obviously, but for the most part, I think that was covering the basis.
Okay. Do you have a copy of the administrative report?
I was forwarded a copy on
Okay.
Friday.
Good. Committee got questions? Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could get an explanation from administration on the proposed severance. Originally, I saw, let's see, I think it looked like 3 separate lots, a part 1 or part 3 that's now merging with another part 3. If we could just get an explanation and to visualize, have that up on the screen for us to understand what is now being canceled in terms of a prior consent and what is now going to look like a new lot, please. And thank you.
Ed?
Thank you. Thank you for that question, because this isn't rather complicated severance. The end result of it is fairly innocuous. It's simply taking 2 lots, one of which you see in red. If you look at the red and the green, and I'm going to use this screen for the committee's sake now, but the red and the green is currently one lot that has consent on, and the expression "once a consent, always is consent" means that can be sold to a new owner over and over again. Part 3, however, does not have consent. The thing that keeps that separate is that it's under different ownership from the lot that surrounds it. So what they want to do is to take part 3, merge it with the consented to lot, and then relocate it there such that, look at this here, that this is the final lotting pattern sketch. So you can see that it's in a better configuration. You've got rectangular lot there, and it doesn't wrap. This lot no longer wraps around the lot that doesn't have consent, because those 2 parcels have now merged. Now the way to do that is, and that's why we've recommended a condition of consent, that they get a consent cancellation, which is a process that this committee has dealt with before, and it simply eliminates that consent. And then those 2 parcels will merge. And once they've merged, then the Secretary Treasurer has the green light to provide consent on that one, and thereby separating the 2 lots. So at the end of the day, once they come back to get the consent cancellation and the minor variance for this lot, there will be 2 lots in a better configuration than what was there before. And that is my understanding. That is what the applicants.
You don't have questions, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Okay, so just to clarify what we heard and what we saw in your report, it is recommended, as per the zoning bylaw regulations, that a minor variance also be applied for. Is that minor variance going to be a condition, or sorry, a recommendation from administration to be a condition, or something that we will be reviewing tonight?
It's a recommendation that it be a condition of this severance.
Furthermore, Mr. Chair.
Let me clarify that, Mr. Chair. We're recommending that the minor variance be a condition of the approval of this severance. They haven't applied for the minor variance yet, because we want to make sure that the severance was approved before applying for the minor variance.
And further to that, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Jeffrey, the recommendation to proceed with cancellation of consent, is that also a condition of this application tonight, or is this something that we will be deciding upon tonight?
It is also a condition, and there's an application process involved with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarification of all of that. So now just a technical question, if I could, to the applicant. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with it looks as if it says 4192. It looks like there's a driveway and an outbuilding or a farm building of some sort. And then to the rear of that, there's another farm building. Can you explain to me what the intent is with the driveway and farm building on 4192, if that's a part of the soon to be large residential property, and how the farm and that second farm building will have access.
So I don't own any of the farmland, and the barn at the back, like not highlighted in the red, has its own access through the field. And then, so I live like right where the 492 or 4192 number is. And then my property surrounds, when we had the old one up, the yellow. So there's a lot that's surrounded by another lot that just doesn't make, like the lot lines aren't very, yeah, they're undesirable. So this would just help to clean up the lot line. So instead of having the yellow where it is now and owning all around it and that, if we just moved part 3 to the top where the green is highlighted and then got rid of the yellow part, it would just help to improve the lot lines and the layout of the thing, but it won't affect any of the farm field or the barns or anything, outbuildings like that.
Thank you, three again, Mr. Chair. So what I'm looking for is clarification that the farm building, it looks to be like it's a farm building that's not in the red. It looks like it's on the agricultural property. How will that still have access to it? It looks as if the driveway is cutting straight through 4192.
If you look like a little bit below the red line there is another bridge and access to that barn to the south of the red. There's another bridge and field access there to the barn.
Anybody else? Anybody else? I do have one question, Chad. You described part 3 as not having a consent. And yet in the next breath, you say we have to pass a thing saying to remove the consent. So which is it?
So, Mr. Chair, the part that is that we're recommending get a cancellation of consent is not part 3. It's actually the red part in its entirety surrounding it. That's why it is a complicated application. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's the other part that wraps around part 3 that has consent to it.
And so what is exactly the status of part 3?
It's a separately legally conveyable lot because it's under different ownership from the lands that surround it.
So I looked this up, and this plan was registered in 1977, according to the town's records. So was that previous to consent being required?
I believe consent, that part of the act came in 1972, I believe. How this was created, I believe it was through, it was through will, which at that time that it was created was permitted, but it must have predated consent control or land division control. So, and I have met with the applicant's lawyer to talk about this, and this had gone on for some time before we figured out, that this was part 3 was legally conveyable, and that the other part had the consent on it. But we have the documentation. We reviewed it with our solicitor, and this is the case.
So I hate to get into this, but it's my understanding that if you have a consent, there's a transferable property and a retained property, and the consent goes to the. So what is the property like? That was done by will, not by consent. So how do we make sure that we don't have 3 lots when we're done?
Yep, and that was a part of the explanation that I skipped over. What will happen is when that cancellation of consent of the red area, keep in mind it includes the green, when that's canceled, no longer has consent to it, and part 3 is put into the same name and same ownership as that, they will effectively merge. And there will be one big lot, and you can sell that one big lot, but nothing else. And that's when Donna, the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer, will have the green light to stamp the green parcel with a consent.
Okay.
Okay.
So. So the severed parcel in the consent for the red piece was severed from the farm?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
And it was
severed
around,
from the farm around that part 3 many years ago.
which was already in separate ownership.
Yes. Yeah.
So then we can do that. It's getting the merger done is what we got to make sure. So that has to be a condition that they be merged.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and those conditions are they're recommended and they're in the report.
Okay. Questions, anybody? Tony?
Through Mr. Chair, I guess building on Lori's comments about the driveway to the south there, would that be a legal entrance, or is this another condition that we should attach to it to make sure that that driveway is permitted there?
So through Mr. Chair, I assume that this is a sort of longstanding relationship between landowners. It's not a legal relationship. It's in that there's no right of way over top of it. That barn does have an access to the south of the red parcel. You can see, so it does have a separate access. So I guess it's up to the landowner could at any time prevent that access to the barn, but that doesn't preclude the farmer from getting access to the barn because the farmer has an access point.
For you, Mr. Chair, I would like to bring the application for consent B0324 4192 11th concession for approval. The applicant must meet all requirements within the report required by the town, drainage, access met, and required water and septic. And if there's anything I left out, I'd be looking for assistance.
I think
With everything met within the planning report.
right. Okay. That good? Chad, is that good?
Yep, that covers the conditions that we've recommended in the plan report. Yeah.
Secondary. Paul. Doug and Paul. Any other question on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Whenever you're ready, Dawn.
Application for minor variance A0724, Robert Jones, 12654 Riverside Drive. The purpose of the application is to request relief from the following subsections of 5.254 of zoning bylaw 1746. Subsection 5.254 II, which establishes that any accessory building or structure on the north side of Riverside Drive is to be no closer than 12.2 meters, 40 feet from the water's edge of Lake St. Clair, and subsection 5.254 III, which establishes that only one accessory building or structure is permitted in the rear yard with a maximum ground floor area of 9.3 square meters, 100.1 square feet. The applicant is requesting relief to facilitate the construction of a 31.7 square meter, 342 square foot deck with associated steps on the north side of the dwelling that will be 8.2 meters, 27 feet from the water's edge of Lake St. Clair when the associated steps are included. Please refer to the attached sketch. The proposed deck will be open to the air, unenclosed, and have glass railings. The floor height of the deck will be 1.9 meters, 3.5 feet, and it will be 0.9 meters high, 3 feet glass railings. Please note that subsequent to the mailing of the notice of the application for AO 724, it was realized that a 14.3 meter, 47 foot by 2.4 meter, 8 feet deck with an area of 34.9 square meters, 376 square feet, and a height of 0.58 meters, 23 inches is also proposed to be constructed on top of an existing concrete pad along the break wall at the rear lot line of the subject property. Accordingly, relief from the provisions above, as well as relief from subsection 5.254I, which establishes that accessory structures on the north side of Riverside Drive shall not be located within 2.5 meters, 8.2 feet of a side lot line, will be required to permit the proposed deck as it is proposed to be located along the rear and side lot lines. For clarity, please see the sketch from the IRCA permit application attached to the end of this report. Also, please note that before dealing with the variance for this deck, the committee will need to determine whether further notification is necessary. Administration and agency comments. Public Works and Engineering has no concerns with the application. Building Department, any construction shall be subject to Ontario Building Code requirements and must comply with zoning regulations. Fire Department, no comments were received. IRCA. The above noted lands are subject to our development interface and wetlands and alterations to shorelines and watercourses regulations under the Conservation Authorities Act. The parcel falls within the regulated area of Lake St. Clair. They note that IRCA permit 622-23 dated November 9th, 2023 has been issued for this development. Please contact our office if any changes are made to the site plan for the approved IRCA permit, as a new permit may be required. No objection to the application, as permit number 622-23 has been issued for this development. Essex Power Line has no concern. Correspondence received from residents at 12710 Riverside Drive objected to the application, indicating insufficient time to review the proposal, insufficient detail in the notice of hearing, does not consider the application to be minor in nature, and the sight line is not being maintained and at the detriment of other residents. Thank you.
Okay, and who do we have?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Brian Chillman. I'm counsel for Robert Jones and his wife, Doreen Jones. They are the owners of the property at 12654 Riverside Drive. They're also the applicants here tonight. Okay,
thank you. Is there anything you'd like to tell the committee before we get into
it? Well,
I
I do have comments about the application. I note that there's some discussion about whether or not because something was not included and not realized until after, that there's some discussion about whether or not there has to be reservice of the notice. Did you want to deal with that first, or I can deal with the applications?
We'll get some advice from administration first. Okay.
Thank you.
Would you talk about that?
Certainly. So the committee has the authority to decide whether additional notification is necessary in this case, and we didn't recommend on this one. The last application, there was a slight revision to it. It didn't have any material impact on what was being proposed. This one is it's relief for another aspect of the application that budding residents and others within the circulation area didn't receive. So wanted to bring that to the committee's attention if it thought that further notification was necessary.
So you're saying that's up to the committee?
It is-
That's a
yeah.
significant enough
Yeah.
change to the,
Yeah, and we have heard from a neighbor that has suggested that there wasn't enough information with respect to the original application. And that's without knowing about this additional one.
okay, so anybody want to weigh in on that? That's on the committee. So Larry?
Can I just ask, well, I'll have a chance to make comment too, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we could get clarification on, I think there were 3 original minor variances that we were looking to review, and since have discovered that there may be 2 other variances, I believe, for rear and side lot lines for a deck or an accessory structure that's to be built along the break wall. Can we just get a breakdown of what we were originally looking at versus what we're supposed to be looking at now, please?
I can guess, Chad, but you go ahead.
So, Chair, I just want to zoom in on this a little bit. Okay. So just in general, what we're looking for, or what the applicant is looking for through this application, is to get relief from the bylaw to permit a deck that's 342 square feet. Now, on the north side of Riverside Drive, you can have one accessory structure in the rear yard, subject to it being not greater than 100 square feet. So that's one aspect of that. It's also within 12.2 meters of the lot line. Yep. Just so of the rear lot line, okay, the water's edge. So there has to be relief from that component as well. And what we're asking for, or sorry, what the addition to the application was for this area at the back here. You see there's a concrete pad there. They would like to build a 23-inch high deck along that, and that also qualifies as an accessory structure. And relief for that involves the setback from the rear lot line, of course, the 0 lot line, and from the side lot lines, because it's right on the side lot line. It needs to be 2.5 meters back from the side lot line. So, and it's also within the 12.2 meter restriction. So there's a lot of special provisions for accessory structures on the north side of Riverside Drive in the rear yard, and that's what they're seeking relief for tonight.
Okay, so that last side yard issue is because they want to put a deck there, not because it's already there.
Correct. And I can, Mr. Chair, I just want to share, I think, an image that's helpful. It's an architectural rendering, so some of the background, the context is a little, it's not accurate, but it gives you a sense of what they like to do. Let me see if this works. Is that coming up? Not coming up, is it? One second here. Share. Oh, there you are. Should show up, right? Show. Yep. There we are. This should work. Okay. I'll just, of course, you know, the background is not what's there. I just want to try to minimize this, but you can see the deck there along, that's the deck along the shoreline that they need relief for as well. So you see it's 23 inches above. Great.
That you brought that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is part of the, sorry, Mr. Chair, this is part of the IRCA permit.
Yeah.
That came to us after we had received the application for variance.
What's the distance between the deck at the river and the deck at the house?
Okay, so I'm not quite sure, but let me give you some numbers here. So from the last step to the water's edge, which is supposed to be no less than, let me get my numbers here. Just give me a second here. It's supposed to be 12.2 meters, 40 feet. So our application, we come in from the last step to the deck, to the water's edge at 27 feet. But if you can see, the stairs don't take up the whole of the deck. So really from the back of the deck, not the steps, is 31 feet.
So then we subtract the distance.
23
has
feet.
to be from the water line?
Yeah.
The deck at the water has a certain setback too?
Yes, but it's already a concrete pad there. So it's already existing, the pad. This is just a floating deck on top of it. And that's right along the edge of the break wall.
Okay. And that deck is 8 feet deep?
That's actually lower than the break wall, yes.
Yeah, so the deck is 8 feet deep.
Yes.
So 31 minus 8, which would be 23. So the 23 feet between the decks and then minus what the steps are.
Right.
I'm just trying to get a perspective on the picture, right? Since the actual background isn't there. Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just would like to state that administration has defined the deck at the break wall as an accessory structure, fully understanding that there was a concrete pad that was already there. The structure that's proposed to be built on top is defined under the zoning bylaw as an accessory structure and needs to be reviewed under the regulations as such. The notification that was circulated did not identify that. And so I have concerns with us proceeding tonight. It's not that there was an error in the width or the height of the deck that we as residents or as the committee were made aware. We're not looking at, a minor tweak of what was proposed originally, but rather going beyond that and looking at a bigger picture and maybe a bigger proposal than what we were led to believe. I think it would be prudent upon us to recirculate notice and have full disclosure and full transparency to the residents, to the neighbors of what is fully being proposed. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will move to defer the application to allow administration to recirculate notice.
Do I get
If administration has enough time to meet the OREG timeframes within the Planning Act.
So, Mr. Chair, we do the next meeting, as you know, was originally scheduled for April 22nd. I believe we're looking at an April 29th date because of a conflict that arose today. So we do have time to meet that. But Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let you know I could overhear Mr. Chilman ask if he could.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment before there's a motion. Yeah, I want to speak to that. Because there's I should have had an opportunity. Yeah. No, I should have had it's not, and I should have had the chance to respond before it went to motion. So just a couple things, and I think it's important to note here, and I know that with all due respect, we want to give the town as much opportunity to have this reviewed to neighbors. There's an important aspect that's not being put forward here. And that is that my clients applied for a building permit. Well, they started applying for approval for this back in October of 2023. On February 1st, the town of Tecumseh issued a building permit for both developments on this site. I don't know if that was an oversight. I don't know. It's been reviewed internally and the work's been started. So this permit got reviewed internally and got issued to my clients. Since my clients had the building permit, they've taken steps to purchase some of the supplies, remove the existing deck, remove the concrete sidewalk. So some of those things were done on reliance of a building permit, which I understand after the fact, I'm being told shouldn't have been issued, but it was, and my clients relied on that. Now, the circulation, the notice didn't have that, but certainly the building permit did, and IRCA issued a permit, even in their letter in response to the circulation for this, said, well, Yeah, we have no concerns, and we've already issued a building permit for this development. So there is some consideration that has to happen here. You have the applicants here tonight. You have property owners here tonight. I don't know why we can't do one of two things. One is either deal with the application today as it is. If you feel that it has to be recirculated, why can't we deal with the deck at this point and just recirculate the piece at the back, the proposed development for the back? Because the deck has certainly been approved twice, once through the building permit, which also included the work at the break wall. And then also this application was properly vetted through all of the departments, and not one person had an objection, including the planner, who recommended it and said that it was in compliance with the test for minor variance. So we're at a stage where development has been halted for that. It's all been ripped up and we can't move, relying on a building permit. I'd like to at least deal with that aspect of the application, if that's possible. So just sort of to clarify, and I know I rambled a bit there, what I'd like to do is we would agree to a deferral of the proposal at the back along the break wall and deal with the application that's before us now, which is for the deck off the back of the house.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicants. I was on the site and saw the amount of construction. The cement pad that's at the front by the break wall, is that an existing pad from years ago, or is that something that was done lately?
Years ago.
And the proposed deck, is it the same height as your neighbors, or higher or lower?
I think it's the neighbor to the east. I think it's about the same height. The neighbor to the west does not have a deck. He has a covered patio.
Okay, thank you.
I'd rather not get into actual hearing questions until we've decided we're having one. And there's that old saying about a rock and a hard place. That's where this committee is right now. I think I might like to get some advice from the planner before we the planning department has put us in a box. And if that's the case, why are we having the hearing at all?
Yeah. So Mr. Chair, the material that was submitted with the minor variance application didn't include this deck at the back. It didn't illustrate that. So that's why the notice went out, and that's why we're having the hearing on just the part that is adjacent to the rear wall. We then received the IRCA permit illustrating a deck that's 23 inches high, qualifying as an accessory structure, and we realized at this point it's got to be incorporated into the relief. They need relief for that as well. Separating the two issues, although I understand Mr. Chilman's position on that, and I sympathize with the delays, I don't see how the two can be separated. And just from a process perspective, it could create some difficulties with respect to appeal rights, and it just, to me, they're part and parcel, same application. If they were willing to do a separate application for that one and bring that one forward as part of a separate application.
Well, it would have to be. If we hear the part of it tonight, there would have to be a separate application for the part
and then
at the river.
Of course, with a separate application, there's a fee associated with that. So.
I'll let your lawyers figure that out. Okay, committee. What do we want to do?
Just
Laura?
if I could, sorry, I just wanted to respond to that about whether or not we'd be willing to apply.
That's what I was going to ask, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So we haven't had a chance to reply
You
to
have
that.
a question, she's going to ask it.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicants. If we were to process the application tonight, review the minor variance application for the deck that's adjacent to the dwelling or closest to the dwelling, would you be willing to proceed with applying for a separate minor variance application for the deck at the break wall?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. My clients are anxious to proceed, so yes, they would abandon the application for the work at the break wall and hope to proceed tonight with the application that's before you with respect to the deck at the rear of the house.
Okay, and
If it's required, Mr. Chair, then even though it wasn't seconded, I will withdraw my motion.
Okay.
And I would also, if we need to move to proceed to hearing the application before us as circulated and not to review any proposed minor variances for the deck at the break wall.
okay. Okay,
That's agreeable to us. Thank you.
okay. I had another question. It'll come back to me, I think, before we're done. So, question, you listed variances that are required. You didn't mention the sightline variance, I don't think. No sightline variance?
Mr. Chair, there are two separate areas of the bylaw that deal with structures on the north side of Riverside Drive. This one is all pertaining to accessory structures because the proposed deck is not attached
Okay,
to it. Okay. The other one deals with the main dwelling and extensions of the main dwelling. So this is not attached to the main dwelling. And I just wanted to remind the committee that if you are proceeding with dealing with this one tonight, there are others interested in speaking to it here.
okay.
Okay.
So I need a motion to accept. I'll call it your proposal to hear it as it was, as we understood it to be circulated without the deck at the river, right? Paul?
Through you, Mr. Chair, regarding application A 0724 12654 Riverside Drive Eve, make a motion to accept the deck application and not include the.
Okay, so let me get it clear. Now you're accepting removing that part that we.
Correct. Making a motion just for the deck and not
The motion
water
though
front.
is to do the hearing.
Correct. Do the hearing tonight.
Not to approve it yet.
Nope, not
Okay.
approving right now, just
Do
to
the
hear
hearing,
it.
okay. Support? Okay. Chris, thank you. All right, so that's what we'll do. Oh, all in favor of that? All in favor, okay. All right. So now that we know what we're talking about, you wanted to make some comments.
Just a few. I know a couple or maybe all of you were at one time out at the property, but I have brought some photos that I'll circulate. Maybe through you can take a look at just what's happened here again. So this accessory dwelling is not going to be attached to the home. And it is being built in accordance with the permit that was issued by the town of Tecumseh and approved by IRCA. We have relied on that permit, taken some steps, but since I think someone attended and we've stopped construction on the site since that's happened, we've not done anything. So prior to that, we purchased some supplies, removed sidewalk, removed the old deck, those types of things. The application is for two minor variances. One related to accessory buildings or structures on the north side of Riverside Drive shall be no closer than 12.2 meters, 40 feet from the edge. I think I spoke to this, that we are 8.2 meters, which is 27 feet, but where the stairs aren't on the side of the stairs, because the stairs are narrower than the deck, we're actually 31 feet from the water's edge. The second minor variance is accessory building or structure is permitted in the rear yard with a maximum ground floor area of 99.3 square meters, which is 100.1 square feet, and we are 342 square feet. So in terms of why we believe this application to be minor, let's start, first of all, none of the departments have any issue with it. It's been circulated. There's been no concern. IRCA commented that it had already issued a permit for this development. I know it included the back part, but we're abandoning that. The planner has produced a report outlining the 4 tests, and I think there's some important things to consider in that planning report. So the intent of the official plan being maintained, which is part 1 of the test. So the concept is to protect existing viewscapes of Lake St. Clair from residential properties on the north side of Riverside Drive, due to the fact that the deck off the back is going to be, it's not going to be covered. It's going to be open air, and it's going to have glass railings. Is there an issue? Should I stop? Okay. Okay, sorry. And so it's open air, uncovered, glass, so existing views are reasonably maintained, and your planner was of the opinion, as are we, that the proposed variance meets the intent of the official plan. So one of the things, just to comment on that, we've actually, so it's just going to be glass corners. Yeah, so the posts even are coming out of that rendering. So we've done some things to try and accommodate some of the concerns that have been raised. So there will be no posts. It's all going to be glass, meat glass, even on the corners. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is the intent of the zoning bylaw maintained? Again, with respect to that test for minor variance, we submit that it is. Your planner thought it was as well. Again, given that this is really not an accessory dwelling that it could be. I mean, it could be a covered shed. It could be, you know, a lot higher. We're not in violation of the height. So again, open air, and the fact that we're 27 feet, but that includes the staircase. So for the most part, the deck is 31 feet from the water's edge. Again, the fact that it's glass railings, the impact of the building being closer to Lake St. Clair shouldn't have an impact to property owners. Is the variance desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land? Again, it's being constructed as presented to the committee today with glass railings, and your planner suggested that maybe there be a condition that the proposed the construction be as submitted with the glass railings, and we're prepared to accept that if that is what the committee wants, but certainly that will be something that we'll consider. And so is the variance minor? I mean, some may say it's not because it's quite larger than what's permitted, but you have to remember the type of structure. This is an open air, uncovered deck. If you look at your bylaw for accessory dwellings, I mean, we could be having a covered shed made of solid materials. I mean, that's permitted. This is an open air deck that's classified an accessory dwelling, and it really does not impact any type of sightline or view of the water. One of the people who wrote to the committee, or to Ms. Ferris, the secretary treasurer, who said there wasn't enough time to review or prepare and wish they were in attendance. They in fact are 2 homes over from this property. And we have renderings of what their view would look like. And just to show you, they're not going to be impacted at all by what we're proposing. So if you take a look at what I'm going to send here, this is the view standing on our property, my client's property, and we put an arrow where the client's home is. There's trees, there's their own shrubbery, and there's a big tree there in view, and our deck is going to be in front of that. So like over here. Yeah, it's going to be there. I mean, if we could just pass that along. So these are people that are 2 over, and that's the best we could do in terms of giving a rendering of what their view would look like. Really, I'd hope the committee would take into consideration, there's lots of glass railing decks along Riverside Drive that have come in for minor variances, and this is no different. I know sightline is always an issue. We are certainly under the height requirement. There's no variance required for height. We've done everything we can to minimize the impact to neighbors with using open air, uncovered glass construction materials so that view is not going to be impacted. So with that, I'll just leave it to the committee for questions.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Chum? None. There's people in the audience who would like to speak to this? Okay. Yeah, we need to get a chair for him.
My name is Daniel Hofgartner, and with me is my spouse, Karen Curry. We are residents at 12650 Riverside Drive. Good evening, committee members and Tecumseh administration. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the minor variance application for the address of 12654 Riverside Drive. The applicants are wonderful neighbors and have recently purchased a property east of our home. We hope they will have the same enjoyment of the waterfront that we have enjoyed for 21 years. We would like to only speak to the south deck proposal located at the house and have no issue to the proposed deck at the break wall as added in the planning report and is not part of the original application. We object to the minor variance requested for the 12-foot by 24 feet 6 inch and 43-inch high deck with glass railings for the following reasons. In our opinion, this application does not meet the 4 tests. The bylaw distance from the break wall is supposed to be 40 feet and requested is 27 feet with stairs and 31 feet from the deck. How is this considered minor? The bylaw for accessory structures is 100 square feet. In this application is for 342 square feet. Again, how is this considered a minor variance or minor in nature? Now, as I've indicated in the application, it is an open air structure with glass railings, but it goes against the essence of 2 other bylaws regarding sightlines on the north side of Riverside Drive. Bylaw 6.1.11, which is minimum rear yard depth, and bylaw fencing 4.14 and bylaw 4.15. The reason being the proposed deck is 43 inches high and extends 12 feet out from the home, blocking our view to the east, which we have enjoyed for many years. It will only be 5 inches lower than the fence bylaw on Riverside Drive North homes. The deck exceeds the sightline bylaw by all 12 feet. And now a secondary accessory structure will be applied for at a later date, which means there's 2 accessory structures being applied for. The concept of glass railings to mitigate sightlines are really not accurate or suffice. This committee and town administration will have no control or recourse with the owner putting anything on top of the deck, including deck, lounge furniture, outdoor kitchen or barbecues, umbrellas, etc. Once people are then on top of the deck, they will tower above our properties and our enjoyment of our own space will be gone. The applicant is a new owner to the property and is not aware that the previous owner also applied for a minor variance to extend his 2nd-story home, which at that time we granted, but are not prepared to do again at our expense of losing our views to the lake. This is the reason the previous owner only had a landing and stairs down to a ground level patio, which have now been removed. Lastly, as a 27-year real estate broker who has sold over 30 waterfront homes on Lake St. Clair, it is in my expert opinion that the proposed deck, size, and the height will negatively affect the resale value of our home. The loss of view and privacy of the proposal cannot be ignored. We hope the applicants can understand our concerns and can find another solution to satisfy the neighbors on the east and west who have made every effort to do the same when planning our viewscapes. I want to thank you for your consideration in this application, and we'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much. He's it. Okay. Committee have questions for Mr. Hofgang.
He did mention something. I have a question. Oh, sorry. Through your, Mr. Chair. He did mention something and I had a question. Would a ground deck on the ground be more in keeping rather than a 43-inch, or is that just something I heard?
Ted, the height of the deck structure, what brings it to a
So what makes this a deck as opposed to a patio, or
what makes it an accessory building or accessory
yeah,
structure?
so unfortunately in the Tecumseh zoning bylaw, there's no definition for deck. Patio is included as structure, as something that's not regulated by the bylaw, but the patio is defined, generally defined as something that's at grade. So a deck is anything that's above that. So this qualifies as a deck. And we, in other bylaws, we've used a foot, but here it's anything above grade. It's considered to be a deck.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I understand Mr. Hofgartner's concern. My question is, could this not be put on the ground with rails? I mean, like ground level patio with glass partition? That's just something I was wondering.
You mean like a cement pad?
Or composite pad? Yeah.
Would that be considered an accessory structure if it was a pad on the ground?
Mr. Chair, no, if I understand the question correctly, it wouldn't be considered an accessory structure. It would be considered.
It would not.
A cement pad on the ground?
Yeah.
No, that would be a patio.
Or
yeah,
cement pad with some kind of flooring or something.
That's where the bylaw is not very clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just one question through you, Chair, to administration. So, I've been kind of thinking about what is the definition of a structure versus a pad, and think the town has already said that a deck on top of an existing concrete pad is a structure. So, how much above grade is acceptable where it does not become a structure? Is it a foot, 6 inches?
So through you, Mr. Chair, you can see this is a weakness in the bylaw that will be changed to the new zoning bylaw because it does not define deck. It doesn't define patio, but it exempts patios from as being a structure. If you look at the dictionary definition of patio, it's at grade. So one would assume that anything above at grade becomes a structure under that, using that sort of rationale. But certainly, 43 inches is a structure. 2 feet is a structure. A deck.
Y'all got your thinking caps on. Tony?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess my question would be for administration. Is there not, if we are considering this an accessory structure, is there not a provision in the bylaw for setbacks from the main use of the accessory building?
Great question. That is exempt. A deck is exempt from that separation from the main building.
Through you, Mr. Chair, question for Chad. I just see in that picture that was supplied here, of the tree and a deck beside the residence. I'm assuming that's beside where the building's gonna be, where the deck is. So I'm assuming. So I just see a lot, even on Google Earth, there's a lot of decks in that area that are 2-3 doors down, but there's multiple in the area now. Since the permit was already granted for the previous application or for this half of the application, does it match the area for different addresses that would have that would be close, or are they not as high, or are they similar? Because I could see them, but I can't see the height.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, the committee has granted relief for these deck structures subject to no railings or glass railings, no, curtains associated with if it's a patio space in the past. So they do exist, and exemptions have occurred in the past along the waterfront. Just a reminder to the committee that we have to evaluate this one on its own merits and determine whether this application in this context meets the 4 tests. But yeah, there's certainly other structures along there.
Lori?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I have to ask the question again. There are others. Are the others 43 inches high, or are they ground level?
So Mr. Chair, we unfortunately we haven't conducted a survey of the other decks along the north side of Riverside Drive as part of this analysis. So I can't answer that question with certainty.
I don't think in those that we've considered, we've ever looked at the actual height of the floor in the deck, right? Can't remember us doing that. So this is a new wrinkle.
Mr. Chair, I make one comment.
I'm going to give Mr. Tillman, because he asked to be recognized.
I just want to remind the committee that a couple things. One is there's no variance being requested for height. We're not exceeding any type of height limit. So there's no height limit that the bylaw for accessory dwellings that we're exceeding that. We're not infringing on any sightline bylaw or any sightline measurement. So we're not, this is just, our best efforts to try and mitigate the impact of an accessory dwelling. Mr. Hofgartner talked about how is this minor because the numbers sound so large, but the committee's done this a long time. And you know that minor variance isn't based on how big a variance should be or how big it is from the bylaw or how it's more of impact. And our position is that we've very much attempted to mitigate the impact, and really there is no impact here. The only other person who's objected is 2 homes down, and if you look at that photo, there is no impact that they have on sightline. So our recommendation is that it is minor in variance. It is a minor variance and it meets the 4 tests.
Absolutely not. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did email Donna 2 photos before the meeting this evening that shows a rendering of, shows a picture of our existing view, and then shows a rendering of what the deck and railing above would look like and how it would obstruct our view. If she can share those, if that's fine, she can't. I have them on my phone. I can do that. I can send my phone around to everybody if the committee would accept that, just to give an idea of what our view would look like. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I can, just so I'm looking at this property, I'm looking for some advice from a senior on the board. When I look at this deck, is it fair to say I just look at the deck, or do I look at what it could become once it's finished with patio furniture and umbrellas and barbecue? Or how am I viewing this? Just to be fair.
Well, I mean, it's a deck, so you can assume it'll be used. Best I can do. Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could we just get one more reminder from administration on the deck being the accessory structure could be built from the dwelling into the rear yard by how many feet? That's by right with no MV.
Yeah. So I was hoping for an opportunity to introduce another subsection in here just as to provide context, because if the dwelling is greater than 12.2 meters back from, so I'll just use this point up here. Can you see my cursor? Yeah, so if the dwelling is greater than 12.2 meters back from the water's edge, then the accessory structure, whatever that may be, the deck, shed, everything, has to be 12.2 meters back from the water's edge as well. And that's the case we have here, because this is 14 meters. So it's like 1.8 meters farther than that 12.2 meter distance. Okay. However, if this house where I've got my cursor, if it was just 6 feet farther, the deck or any accessory structure could be built 14 feet into the rear yard. So we're only 6 feet, and it's recognizing that there are a lot of houses that are close to the lake and still providing for provisions for accessory structures to be built less than 100 square meters in the backyard. And this provision is primarily to do with sheds and accessory structures and that sort of thing, because they can be 15 feet high. And the deck, because it's separate from the building, gets caught in that accessory structure definition, although it's only 4 feet high. But if a deck was to be built with behind that 12.2 meters, so south of it, it could be as high as the building code would permit. It could go very, very high. 2-story deck, or a shed could be built there as well. Yeah, something like that. That could be 15 feet, I believe, is the maximum height.
Thank you. Furthermore, just on that, so just to speak to earlier, there was discussion that we were not looking at any minor variances for sightlines. By default, the purpose of the maximum ground floor area is to regulate building mass to ensure that any accessory structure located in the rear yards does not unduly obstruct the views. So it's by default that GFA does actually regulate, and by default, the minor variance does both. We do need to look at both. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, sorry, I have to weigh in here because I misspoke. It's 8.2 feet is the height, the maximum height of the accessory structures on the north side of Riverside Drive in the rear yard. So it's a special provision for height as well for those. So 8.2 feet high.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just commenting to the picture that we were supplied with, this picture here. I'm just looking at, I guess it must be the applications, residents that we're looking, I think to the east, I think, if I'm correct. Am I looking to the east on this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it's the property to the east.
Okay.
The deck would be sort of between the tree and behind that and towards the house. And the arrow points to the person who wrote in.
I'm just looking at the deck next door, and the deck to me, it's higher, like it looks higher than the shrubs. So I'm just saying it looks like the applicant's neighbor is already 2 or 3 feet. Can someone confirm the height on the neighbor's deck? Not that
Probably the
it
same.
matters, but just
No, yeah, Mr. Oh, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that height is probably about the same, but just for the record, and my client wanted to make sure understand, this is not the neighbor that's objecting. That the arrow is to the house beside it, they're objecting.
Through you, Chair. First of all, I want to make a comment that both parties, the applicant and the neighbors, are both, well prepared and did a great job at explaining the reason for the applications and the opposition. These things are always difficult. And I understand the concerns on the wants and concerns on both parties. I don't know if it's, if the committee, or if we could suggest that there be some negotiation on setback and or square area. The height, I understand why the applicants are looking for, an at-grade walkout to the deck. The neighbor has one, as we pointed out in the picture. And being at the site today, they are about equal, in my opinion. But the deck to the east is quite a bit narrower in width, or in its projection to the water. So I guess my purpose to my comments are, is there any willingness on the applicants to redefine the scope or the width? Failing that, I mean, the committee will make a decision, and it will be what it may. And I understand that a deferral is not something that you want, because it seems like, there's already been some
I think the carpenters want to go to work.
errors. Yeah.
Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Tom's comment regarding, a revised proposal, Karen and I have discussed it, and we're not against them having a deck off the back of their property. What we're against is the height of the deck and the loss of view that we will have to the east. And exactly the 12702 deck, which is about 3 feet high, is really not a deck. It's a landing to come out of their house, and then they have stairs right down to a lower level patio. So there really is no obstruction to neighbors' views. So, again, we would be open to Mr. The applicant, having a deck, but much lower. Thank you.
So you left yourself open. How much lower?
Mr. Chair, our opinion is that, a deck that's, 2 steps off ground level is more appropriate. By the time you add, any type of railing, if you want a railing or not, and having furniture on there would not obstruct our view.
So 16 inches there. 2 steps, 14 inches, 15 inches. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're good.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So a couple things with respect to reducing the size of the deck and coming to some sort of settlement. Anything above grade level is still going to require minor variance if we keep the same size. If we were to lower it, I can tell you that it's not even in the application, but we've already lowered it by 7, 8 inches. Is that right? Because the contractor was able to reduce one step. So the 43 is actually down to, what did you say it was? It went from 43 inches high to it's a step. So the depth of a step, it's been reduced. Yeah, 8 inches. Plus we've gotten rid of the posts that are on the rendering so that it's all glass.
It's kind of a silly question, but how do you get from the house to the deck?
Well, if we lower it anymore, we need a parachute. But how would you get there? That another question. Yeah.
The windowsill looks like it's maybe 4 feet off the ground. And the floor is
it's
like
43 inches.
Yeah.
So, you know, my clients are getting elderly, like they don't want a big step out of there. So that's why it was set that way. I'm sorry. That's why it was set that way. But, you know, they're trying to accommodate on every aspect.
So are we. So
I know.
Yeah.
Just a question of clarification. So as I understood it, it was walkout grade, so no step down. Is that not?
That was the initial.
That was the initial.
That was the initial. So you're already going down
down one step. So he's going to take a step down 8 inches and then the deck.
Okay.
Which is going to bring them lower than a lot of decks in that area, but.
And with one step, it's still 43 inches.
No, with one step, it's 38.
So the rendering that we've seen tonight, did it show a step?
No, it didn't, because these are just things that we've done since the circulation. So I have a revised diagram that I can show you of the rendering, but they've now made it a step out. Is this it here?
So we're 2 inches above the height of the hedge.
Now just need to step there. Yeah. Yeah, they have that. So if you look, so at the computer generated version is that grade, but it'll be a step down and then it'll be one step less here. It'll be lower all the way around. No, out the back.
Right.
When you, yeah.
No.
No, it's lower at the front, I think, isn't it?
4 feet difference in grade back to the
No, 5 steps.
5 steps.
One coming out of the door, 3 more.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I don't want to keep getting on this, but in what Tom said, could the plans not be changed so there's 3 steps out of the house and 3 steps to the sidewalk, which lowers the, and I understand you want the height. My concern is, as I asked the question, is once the patio furniture gets on it, it's not that height anymore when you're sitting there. Could you not have 3 steps coming out of the house and where you have 5 steps going to the sidewalk, eliminate at the 3 so it brings it down more? Which
So four steps is 28 inches.
32.
Off the grade.
20, yes, 20. Well,
20,
it's 36 now, so
30,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
My question, couldn't it be revised where it's 3 steps out of the house and 2 steps to the grade and see what height would that give it? My concern is,
Well, 2 steps is 16.
so 3 steps is 24, would lower the deck 24 inches, and then
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify for the committee, we're not looking at a variance for height of the structure.
Right.
We're looking at gross floor area and we're looking at the setback from the water's edge. Understanding that scale comes into all of this and obstructing views or not obstructing views, we need to look at the variances before us and bartering back and forth and asking for, changing someone's building permit that unfortunately, a very unfortunate situation where you had a building permit already approved, I don't think is for this committee to be doing. I think that we have a lot of information before us. I would be prepared to consider the application before us. And if the applicant wants to, take the risk and, ask for deferral yourselves at this moment, that would be up to you. But I don't think we should be discussing height and changing that, and asking the applicant to do that before us.
It's always been my approach to, if we can get the proponent and the person who's objecting to it to agree on a compromise, that it's a good thing. It's better than big government. Okay. If we can get there, we can get there. If we can't, I know supper's waiting. Right. So I think there's some agreement that maybe we can do something, but we haven't got the right number yet. So.
Well, I think through you, Mr. Chair, I can tell you with confirmation, we've done a few things. We've removed 1 step height from the deck. So it's not 43 inches. It's going to be around 37, 36. We've removed the posts on the side of the deck, which our rendering showed. They're no longer there. So it's all glass. That's kind of the application that's before you.
Okay.
Okay, without throwing another wrench into the plans here, which I really don't want to do. But if we make a motion to deny this application, he is going to be proposing another application for the deck at the break wall. Would he just not include the revisions to this deck on that application? Or would we be in a position here to defer this application so him and the neighbor, whatever, could make some agreed upon modifications and just return the whole application with the one at the break wall at the next application without having to do a new application?
Not to throw a monkey wrench into your comment, but we asked early on about a deferral, and we were told that the applicant is not willing to. They want to answer tonight about something. So I guess nice try. If you're out of questions, we need a motion.
Through you, Chair. Just go back to my previous comments about negotiation. And again, this is not we're not here as the brokers for negotiating. As Lori points out, the variance is not for height. The variance is for area and setback from the water. Is there any negotiation on, even though I said we're not negotiating here, it would be nice to get it completed tonight. You know, is there any negotiation on width or depth from the house?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Mr. Marentet's comments. The only objection, in my opinion, that's come from Mr. Hofgarten is the height. He's asked for it to be lower, and we've done that. We've lowered it. We've made it all glass. I don't know what else we can do. Size, he's not objecting to. I didn't hear that. It's all related to height, and that's not even really part of the, I know it's included in what you're considering tonight, but it's not anything that anyone's objected to. They want it lower, and we've heard from your planner that anything above grade is considering accessory dwelling. So I don't know. Right. Yeah, I mean, we have that material purchased after the issuance of the building permit.
Yeah. So that's good because now that isn't in the record. Yes, yeah.
I am prepared to make a motion. Mr. Chair, thank you.
I asked for it, yeah.
Yeah. In the case of application A0724, for the two minor variances before us for setback from the water's edge and gross floor area, it is in my opinion that the intent of the zoning bylaw for separation for accessory structure and the intent of the zoning bylaw to regulate building mass has been met, and that it is my recommendation that the accessory structure or the minor variances for the accessory structure be approved. However, that if the applicant chooses to submit revised building permit drawings to reduce the floor height, that is the applicant's desire to work with adjacent neighbors to make those changes, and that it be solely with the applicant, that it is not something that we can regulate. I do have actually a condition that the glass railings shall not be greater than 3 feet in height, that the deck should be open air and unenclosed, and that if we could, the building permits that were submitted and were approved, that the height of that deck be no greater. In other words, I would not support going back to the building department for a higher deck, for example. Thank you. That they be glass railings no higher than 3 feet in height as per the pre-approved building permit application.
There is a regulation with the deck that high about the height of the railings. That's I think it is 3 feet. Hmm. Yeah. Okay, it's been moved. Tom?
Does the drawings for the building or the structure that were approved by the building department, they need to be amended to show the revised drawings?
To 7-inch lowering, you mean?
Yeah.
Not
the 1 step lower.
through you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is they don't. It can't exceed 43 inches high. So we've submitted, we have diagrams. I have them here actually that show the 1 step lower, right?
So
yeah,
36 inch.
They haven't been submitted to the.
So it's a 36-inch height we're talking.
Yeah, it's not 43. I don't know exactly what it comes to, but it's 1 step lower.
-7.
Yeah, I hope so. I haven't measured a step lately. Okay.
All right. Did we miss anything in the conditions, Mr. Jeffrey? In the motion, just talking about forming this motion, yeah?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's nothing that in the report other than the condition of the glass railings, yeah. And that'd be built in accordance with what was submitted. Yeah.
Paul?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm repeating what anybody said here, maybe I am, but is this the new height gonna be adjusted on the permit? That's the new height, or considered to the old height of what we thought was just walking straight out? They said they dropped it 8 inches, so is that gonna be?
I think the motion is approving the height one step lower than what was on the permit.
Right. Is that what I heard from Ms. Chadwick? I thought Ms. Chadwick said the application before us today, and if we want to reduce it, we will. I mean, we're prepared to, but I wasn't sure what we're approving.
Oh, thank you for the question then to my fellow member on the committee. I assumed that you had that change in step approved by the building department already.
No, we had 43 inches approved, but because of the issues that the neighbors have raised, in an attempt to reduce it, we've talked to our contractor to reduce it by 1 step, which we're prepared to do. I believe the building permit doesn't require 43 inches. It can't exceed that. So our final inspection will be at lower than that.
No, but we want to require 1 step lower.
Okay, is that what? Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. You good? Seconder? Oh, Doug?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I also would like to add to that motion that the glass be clear glass, not tinted. And I know it's minor, but just so we.
It is clear glass, but that's fine.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a seconder. Any further discussion by the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? You opposed? Okay. One less thing he has to sign. Okay, so it's been passed.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no deferrals. There's new business. You've heard already that there's a committee of adjustment meeting next month is a week later. It's been rescheduled to April 29th. So that you know that.
Rather than the 22nd.
Rather than the 22nd. I understand that nobody has put in to go to the conference. Is that correct? You're all aware that the deadline is coming up. If you want to go, you got to put your name in.
Mr. Chair, have I been missing some correspondence about these matters? So I haven't seen correspondence about April unless that was earlier in the year last year or later in the year.
It just came up today.
It just came up today. And then correspondence about the conference in Windsor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It wasn't correspondence. I'm not talking about correspondence. I'm talking about from my own knowledge that the secretary and I are the only two who have registered for the conference. Is that correct? And I'm simply reminding you that it's there if you're going. You better get on it.
When is it?
I don't know.
it's June 2nd to the 5th.
2nd to 5th, yeah.
The conference has just been recently opened up online for registration. And what I would suggest is if you are wishing to attend, that you register as an OACA member if you haven't done so, because you'll get discounts for that. Being a member, you get a discount on the seminars that are offered.
Membership
the
for
membership
the town, the membership's $150 and discount on the conference is 170. So register as a member, it's free if you go to the conference.
And registration for membership, I believe, like the deadline for that rate expires like March 31st. You can register after that, but there's additional fees. So if you're intending on going to the conference, it's recommended that you register as a member.
Okay, anybody got anything else for the committee?
So just to confirm with administration, are we all then okay to, from a budget perspective, to register and proceed?
Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, there's budget money to attend.
We're in a little better shape this year because there's no travel required, right? And no rooms required, so we can all go. At
Caesar's.
oh,
Caesar's
at the
Wednesday.
casino. Okay. That's it? Good. Motion to adjourn? Doug and Chris. Now, see, I got him now, but I gotta get you. Thanks very much.